let's talk about polishing, because when you choose a detailer, especially a high-end detailer, the number one thing you're paying for is polishing. So that's going to vary from detailer to detailer, and the biggest difference between Status Detail and what we offer and the average other detailer or the large format stores or whoever you're kind of talking to is going to be how they polish. It's going to break down to a lot of different things. Polishing is very complex. We can talk about this more in some other videos, because I could probably literally make an Obsessed Garage video that's an hour long, literally only talking about polishing, and I don't want to put most of you guys to sleep because not everyone's going to be interested in that kind of content. So let's kind of just go into the fast version of like polishing and what that means for when you're choosing a detailer. A lot of detailers are going to do a one-step polish on your car, which means they're going to do the entire car with like hopefully more than one pad, but they're probably going to use one pad on a polisher. They're going to go around the entire car one time and do a one-step. And most people charge a couple $100 for that, and the car will turn out noticeably better, which is a great thing, right? But that's not always going to be a good thing that it turned out so good, because they might have cut very quickly to get the result. And like I said, that's going to be a different video. So what we did to this car that's unique, and that was, it's more expensive, but the customer paid for this to get the better result, is we did multiple steps of correction. Paint correction, or polishing as I kind of like to call it, comes in many steps. It's kind of like sandpaper. So I think a lot of us have the reference of when we were younger or something, we were sanding wood, or you went to wood shop in school and you were sanding wood, and you'd start with, the wood would be kind of screwed up, right? Like bad paint would start screwed up. So you would use like 100 grit sandpaper, and that would cut through everything really fast, right? And it would get the defects out, but then you'd have like really bad 100 grit sanding marks. So then you have to take out those sanding marks with like 500 grit or 600 grit, and then you need to take 600 grit out with 1,000, and then you have to take 1,000 out with 2,000, and then it's perfect and it's amazingly soft, and it's like a high-end piece of wood that you can. All right, so to continue kind of where we left off, sorry, our SD card kind of got full there and it got screwed up, so we had to switch SD cards. So we left off with the reference to like sanding, sandpaper grit changing, and that's kind of how we do paint correction. So we do a very aggressive step, or maybe not necessarily very aggressive, but we do an aggressive step, and then we follow it by less aggressive and then less aggressive, and then we finish with a jeweling step, which is a very unique polishing step that very few people use, but that's really like, like most people will get you, or most people will get you to 70% or 80% like clarity in paint, and then like really good people will get you to like 90 or 95, and then the people like us who are like really passionate about this, who are really crazy and have clients who are also really passionate and kind of crazy about their cars, will pay for that last 5% or that last 10%, and you achieve that by doing jeweling. And when you're jeweling the paint, you're doing a very unique process with a very unique polish, with a very unique pad that's fitted to the car, because every car's paint's going to be different, and that results in a really unbelievable shine and gloss, which you'll kind of see as you walk around this car and when we walk you around it. But to show you some of our pads, this is, as we said a second ago, a lot of people are going to use one pad. So this is a pad that we use basically for most of the car. We switch this out every once in a while because we're not going to use one pad to do the entire car. That's just not a good practice. But this pad is large, right? When you can see this on the paint, this can do large sections of the paint, and it'll be efficient. It'll work quickly. But for example, this section right here, this section's very narrow, right? This section's also very narrow, so this would never fit in there. So if you're a detailer operation with very few polishers, or only large pads like this, like many people are, you'd never be able to polish inside of this door. You'd never be able to polish this lip down here effectively. It would be a little complicated to do the mirror. It would be extremely complicated to do the trim on the top of the window over here. I think that, yeah, that's in the video there, so you can see that. That wouldn't really work either. This will, for example, work right here in the very back part of the door. So this can kind of get in here very carefully, but you'd have to be extremely careful not to hit the top or the bottom of the door, because you would definitely scratch it if you were to hit the polisher into that. because it's oscillating all over the place, so you don't want to bang it into anything. So that's why we have smaller pads as well that fit different polishers. We have many different polishers. We don't just have one. So we have a 3-inch pad, which you can see is massively different than the large pad that we have on this side. So the 3-inch pad works really good on a lot of stuff. It'll work really good right here, for example, on the side by the mirror. It would work very good on this section of the door where it splits on the top. It'll be very handy to do sections in here that the larger pad's not going to get to. So the larger pad would kind of stop about here, where we'd only polish to here. Now the 3-inch pad's going to pick up the rest of it from here. But then again, it gets smaller, right? So this is still not going to fit over there. So from this size, we have the 3, and then we're going to have a 2-inch pad, which is even smaller. And then from these sizes, we still have one more little 1-inch pad, which is extremely small. So these guys come in handy for all the different kinds of things. The 2-inch pad here could be handy for doing a mirror, like right here, for example. We can use this in here, but we actually never use the 2-inch in here. We use the 1-inch for that entire section. So the 1-inch basically went in the entire section here and did that. We also used, I believe, the 2-inch on this bottom piece. I think that's in the camera. Here, we'll show it back here. So yeah, this was used basically in this entire section down here. Different areas as well. We can kind of walk around the car. I'll walk you around a few more spots of the car and just show you where the pad sizes make a big difference. And if your detailer doesn't have these different pad sizes, they're basically just never going to polish that section of the car. And depending on the polishers they have, even if they have the right pad size, the polisher might not fit into the spot. And then there's rotary polishers and dual action polishers, and both of those are going to be very handy for different kinds of sections and areas and the kind of correction you need to do. So if you don't have all those polishers, you're not going to really be able to polish a car like this. Having the right polishers can cost several $1,000s just to have the right tools to do a car like this, not including the pads. If we have all the pads, it would be another probably $1,000 in just pads. So that's a good question. We'll talk about that in future videos. If you're too far away and don't have the means to ship your car to Status Detail to have us do your car, that's okay. You can use a local detailer who you trust to work on your car. But in future videos, we're going to talk about, what are good questions to ask that detailer? What are good questions to ask them so you can understand, is this guy really good? Is he going to be able to have, the 3-inch and the 2-inch pads to knock out the car? Or does he only have one polisher and one pad to knock the entire car out? Because if you don't have those things, you're not really going to be able to do the car effectively. Now, even if you have an M5 or an M3 or an S2000 or whatever it might be, 3-inch pads are really handy. They come in handy for a lot of things on cars that you're not going to really think about until you really look at a car the right way with a detailer's eyes, and then you're going to be like, whoa, I can't do that section properly without the right tools. So like I said, let's keep walking around the car and I'll show you some more specs. We're on the front of the car now. And so this is our big guy that we did the majority of the car. We're going to do the hood with that, obviously. I'll show it this way so you can see it. We're going to do the hood, obviously, with something like this. But doing something in here gets really complicated because of the curvature of this. So again, I don't want to get too in-depth on polishing techniques and things like that in this video. But basically, the way this is curved, if I lay this on here, I'm hoping that shows up somewhat on video. It's not going to be the right angle for it. But the way this is going, it's not laying flat, right? When you're polishing, you want the pad to lay flat. Like if it was on the hood, it would lay completely flat. When it's down here, it's not laying flat. There's a gap. I can literally put my hand underneath this pad because it's not touching anything. So it's only touching on the top right and the bottom left corners. And what we're doing is we're creating a lot of heat on the top right and the top left corners, and we're creating no heat in the center because it's not touching. And that's basically an indication that this is the wrong size pad to be polishing in that section. So if you try and force the pad into that section, it might work for a little bit, but you're risking a lot of things, and most of them are way high friction points in the top and bottom, which is going to cause you to burn through the paint. So again, if your detailer doesn't have these kinds of pads and they're forcing it into that area, and you have like an exotic car or something, you're really playing with fire. You need to use a professional to do your car, and not someone who has a smaller operation or maybe just is the better price or something. Don't risk that on like a carbon fiber panel that's going to be like $5,000 to repaint. So when we use a 3-inch pad here, it lays completely flat. So this would be the right pad to use. I could also use this 2-inch pad. It would take me more time, but it would be more precise. It'd be more like an X-Acto knife, and this would be more like a sledgehammer, even though both of these are, that's an extreme example. Both of these will work in this area, and this will clearly not work in that area. Now, same thing on this side. Hopefully we can still be seen on the camera here. This is the wrong size, and then again, the 3-inch is going to be the right size for here. It's going to be the right size for here, and then the 2-inch is the right size for this lip in here. This goes far back too, so this goes all the way into the air duct over here. So again, those are just some examples. Also, you wouldn't want to use the edge of this under the light. That's the wrong idea. The 2-inch is the right idea for here, where this would actually still be too large. So the 3-inch is the wrong size there, but the 2-inch is going to be the right size there. Just another, kind of walk around the car. I think there's probably one more spot we can find where we can give good examples like this. All right, guys. So this is, first of all, this is just a really pretty part of the car. It's just there's an amazing line right here that I don't know if the camera's doing it justice. It's just a really beautiful line in the car. This is kind of why we do this kind of stuff. This is why I started Status Detail, and to do this kind of detailing, because polishing a panel like this is really cool. One of the taglines that we've had on our website for a while, and that we kind of use here and there, is when detailing turns to art, and this is kind of a representation of that, in my opinion. This is just a really beautiful thing to look at. Now it's really dialed in. It's really glossy. The dual layer coating is kind of making it more glossy and slick. It's just a cool thing to look at. But that aside, so another interesting area where we had to polish, right? I couldn't really show you in the front where I said the pad wasn't touching all the way, but I think this will be the right angle. So if we show this like this, yeah, it looks like that's showing up on the camera. So you can see, like, you can put your finger underneath here. It's not touching. Same thing here. I think that's going to show up even better. So that's not touching anywhere on the entire car. So if I was spinning this pad here, what's going to happen is, first of all, most detailers who aren't, used to working on exotic cars like this are probably not going to realize this, and they're going to go, this panel is huge. So just because the panel is big, I can use a big pad. Everything else I've showed you, the panel was too small to use a big pad. Like, it physically was not possible. That's where this is so dangerous, because this panel is so large that we can actually use a big pad and still get into trouble. So because this is like this, again, like we mentioned before, we're going to cause a lot of friction here, and nothing in the center. So as this is spinning, it's heating up here, and there's often also very little polish on the outside edge, which means we're basically like rotary drilling into the paint here, even though in this case we're using a DA. Rotary was the wrong word. But yeah, so this is going to create a lot of friction, a lot of heat. It's going to make marks in the paint, and if we do it long enough at the wrong pace and we're not paying attention, we will absolutely burn through the paint here, which will cause a huge problem, especially because this panel is like a major panel on the car. It would be very expensive to repaint. So, for example, this pad works great here in the back because it lays flat. I think that can be seen on the camera. It doesn't lay flat, again, like here. It's a little better here though, right? Same thing back here. It's pretty flat in the back. If we're getting like 75, 80% contact, we're in pretty good shape. Now the 3-inch though, the 3-inch is very happy in many of these spaces where at least, some of them are going to be hard, but when we get to the smaller sizes, we can still achieve that 70% contact, where at least we're getting most of the pad touching it. That's much better than this, where almost none of it is touching it. So these are things to look out for when you're detailing an exotic car. We don't experience problems like this when we do basically virtually any car that's not a McLaren or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. A McLaren, especially in the back, and kind of a good example of it, honestly, is a 911 or a GT3 or a GT3 RS. The way the backs of the cars, of those cars are shaped is very similar to this, only it's kind of the inverse of what this panel is. You got to be careful of that kind of stuff, and those are things that we always talk about. We have thousands of hours and things like that in our research to make sure we can handle this kind of detailing. So be careful of the detailer you use in a car, because this can be a very dangerous thing for a car if you don't know what you're doing. All right, guys, so once again, I'm not even going to use the 6-inch pad. I think you guys get it at this point. There's like no area on this entire back bumper that we can use a 6-inch pad and make it make sense. It's a little hard to tell, but back here there's a lip to this little first wing where this is going to be the right size, or even like a 1-inch is going to be the right size to do that whole lip. And then down here we're going to use a 1-inch around the emblem. Around here we can use a 1-inch here, or we can kind of get a 2-inch into most of these areas, and that's going to be a 2-inch. And then for the bigger areas we would use oh, we're on the wrong side. Let's do it on this side. So this will be the 3-inch over here, and a 3-inch. And then, I mean, if you really wanted to push it, you could use a 3-inch here, but we would probably switch over to using a 2-inch here, and then we'd use a 2-inch up here. And then these lips right here are basically 100% a 1-inch, another 1-inch here, and then we would do a 1-inch on this lip as well. So basically the entire back bumper is impossible to do if you only have one polisher that's like a 6-inch large throw polisher. You would not be able to polish the back of this car. So again, these are the kinds of questions you would want to ask a detailer if you weren't using someone like us. Even if you were local, I would still ask questions like these if you had an exotic car, and I would still, you know, especially if you're not local and you want to use a high-end detailer to detail your exotic car, you know, ask to see their polisher, to see if they have a 1-inch pad like this, or a 3-inch pad. Because if they tell you they don't have pads like that, or they don't use them enough, that might be true. They don't do cars where those are going to be required often. But if you have a car like this, that's not going to be a detailer for you. Make sure you don't go there, because there will be massive sections where they're not going to be able to do your car. They might end up trying to like finger polish stuff by hand, which is doable, but I mean, if you have a car like this, you should not be paying a person to hand polish anything. You need to be using machines with the right tools in the right pad sizes. So that's kind of a good walk around of the entire car, basically, and showing the complexity of polishing. And that's the biggest difference we're going to have on this car, as far as like weird differences from a standard detail to an exotic car like this.